Get out of your daughter's high-rise apartment and become poor. My mother-in-law, Fujishiro, who has been harassing me in various ways, came to the room where we lived and said so. A-san seemed to believe that it was right for her daughter to live her life the way she wanted. I can understand her feelings as a single mother who raised her daughter. But it was unbearable for her to harass me. The moving company would be here soon, so I told A-san that, and it happened right away. The movers arrived and started carrying out the luggage. A-san turned pale when she saw the luggage being carried out of my room, but she was further devastated when she learned that it was from another room in the same building. Chisaki and I explained to my mother-in-law about a certain person. I hope this will wake A-san up. My name is Saito Takashi. I am a 38-year-old man with a decent amount of assets. When I was a child, my family was quite poor, so eating 3 types of food a day was just a dream. All I remember is that mealtimes, when the delicious smells wafted from the house next door, were always a painful time for me. That's why when I was little, I used to blame my parents, saying that I wanted to be born into a normal family. Thinking back, I think I said something terrible, but at the time I was just a child and didn't have the perspective to care about anything. Normally, they would have thrown away even a single bone in my body, but my parents never got angry at me for that. On the contrary, they always went out of their way to give me some of their own food. The two of them are always thin in my memories, so it makes me sad every time I think about them. Eat a lot and grow big. You'll be fine, Dad. You don't have to worry about anything. All a parent wants is for their child to grow up healthy. By the time I became a high school student, I wanted to somehow repay the unconditional love they had given me. There was only so much I could do. I tried working part-time jobs as a convenience store attendant and a newspaper delivery man, but they didn't produce much. So I asked people and looked up things on the school computer, and worked hard to think about work and my future. The reason my family was poor was because both of my parents were in poor health. They were leaders in a paid work environment and worked too hard for their colleagues. As a result, they were unable to work and stopped receiving salaries. After that, they managed to get by dipping into their savings, but I couldn't let that happen to me again. That's why I absolutely did not want to fail at work. For these reasons, I thought about it and chose to be in charge of others rather than being employed by others. Working as a regular employee would hardly increase my salary and would be very difficult. Some people might still find it rewarding, and I don't mean to deny that, but I needed to aim higher for my parents, so I decided to start my own business, become the president of a company, and hire people. Once I made that decision, I worked hard and juggled several part-time jobs to raise funds for the company. Then, a few years after graduating from high school, I founded a food company and used my head to expand it. The reason it went so smoothly was probably because I had been using SNS since my student days to gather acquaintances and create a website. Although there were times when things were difficult, my company grew steadily. I guess I was the one who resisted, as I diligently researched foods that met the needs of the current era, such as those made with natural ingredients and a healthy mindset. Now my company has grown into a company that no one in this area is unaware of. It now stands alongside major corporations. I had been working so hard that when I looked at myself, I realized that I was in a position that other people envied. I live in the top floor of a tower apartment building and have a beautiful wife. There was no one like that to begin with, but there is no one who would call me a poor person at the bottom of society. I should be content. However, I have been feeling strangely anxious lately. It must be the influence of the poor life I led as a child. That's what I thought at the time. I went to work feeling the warmth of spring and headed for the president's office. The room I was aiming for was at the top of a 10-story building, so it would take some time to get there. I got on the elevator, whose doors had just opened, and looked at the people who had arrived with me. I secretly checked on the other passengers, but they didn't seem to have any particular health problems or to be overworked. I'm the president and a person in a position to influence people, but that doesn't mean I want to influence other people as I please. Considering the synergy of a company, it might be more profitable to make my employees work like horses without regard for the circumstances of others. However, my parents would probably not be happy if I made them unhappy while making them happy. My father is a kind person who prioritizes others over my mother. He would be shocked if the company I run turned into a black company. That's why I, as a person in charge, have to care about my employees so that I can make my parents happy with a proper salary. As I was thinking about this, a nearby employee said something. When I looked over, a male employee was tilting his head and staring at his hand. I wondered where he got injured. That's strange. When I examined the back of the young employee's hand, I saw a red line as if he had been scratched by something. The wound must have opened while we were moving, and a small amount of blood was coming out. Seeing this, I took a Hakka card out of my pocket and handed it to him. Are you okay? Use this if you like. Huh, boss? No, it's not a serious injury. Were you thinking about something else up until now? The man, who hadn't noticed me, hurriedly tried to refuse the valuable item I offered him. But I forced it on him. This is the kind of time to use a valuable item. I haven't used it recently, so I feel bad for him. If you don't mind, could you give this guy a chance to shine? If that's the case, I'll definitely return it, so thank you very much. The elevator doors opened in front of the male employee who had received the valuable item. It seemed to be the floor he was getting off on. I thanked him and bowed my head, saw him off, made sure no one else was getting on, and closed the elevator doors. After arriving at the reunion, I headed to the president's office. As I put my things down in my room and took out my work tools, I felt the smartphone in my pocket vibrate. When I checked, it seemed to be an email from my wife's house. The email, accompanied by a cute emoji, said that she had left something behind at home. I couldn't help but mutter, "Oh no," and draw a picture of my head. I had been working on some documents for work at home, but I must have left them on the table because I was so busy this morning that I forgot about them. I'll be in big trouble if I don't have them for Gil's meeting. I was typing an email asking my wife to deliver them to me, when I got a second email saying she had already left the house. My wife is such a good wife that it's almost too good for me. She's very attentive to the small details and always makes sure to follow up on people. She's been like that since I was a child. She lived in the neighborhood, and she would always notice when I was hungry and share her snacks with me or let me eat the leftover food from her house. That continued several times even when I was in middle school and high school. I wanted to make such a kind girlfriend happy, so I proposed to her. I confessed to her when I graduated from high school, when I was still completely out of poverty. It's strange that Chisaki was willing to spend her life with me. I was happy that she accepted my confession, but there are still times when I don't understand why she turned to me. I hope the day will come when she tells me, but I check my schedule and organize the things I need to do while thinking of my beloved wife's face. Speaking of which, I'm going to have a house party in a few weeks, so I need to get ready. I'm inviting a lot of people who helped me in high school and friends who still believe in the faith, so it's sure to be a fun time. As I was feeling excited thinking about that day, a female secretary came into the room. "Your wife called me earlier. I'll pick up any forgotten items, so the president should concentrate on his work. I've also given her phone number to the local office. I registered it at the time because my smartphone was damaged when I dropped it in water. I'm the president of a company, so it would be difficult if I couldn't be contacted in an emergency. Sorry. I'm causing trouble. That's my job, so please don't worry about it." I thought I was used to the job, but I've been making small mistakes frequently lately, so I need to pull myself together. The other day, I panicked and almost spilled documents, and I carelessly broke my work tools. Maybe it's because I'm having some minor problems in my life. My wife, Chisaki, has a mother named Fujishiro Aim. Aim, who is like a mother-in-law to me, has been appearing in front of us a lot recently, so we've noticed her. When I ask her why, she just says she wanted to see her daughter's face, so I'm not sure how to respond, which is scary. I can't tell her that I've been messing around at work because of her, so I've been racking my brains every day. "Boss, you're holding your ballpoint pen upside down." "Oh, sorry. I was thinking about something." As a mother, I'd like to solve this problem if possible, but I wonder if my wish will come true. A few days later, while I was snuggling up in a room in the upper class of a tower apartment building, Aim came to visit again. I was surprised because she had only been here a few days ago. Aim is the type of person who gets caught up in the little things. When I'm absent-minded while she's doing housework, she complains that I'm making my wife do all the hard work, and when I'm not dressed up, she asks if I don't earn enough money to dress up to the standards of the headlines. Every time, I politely denied it or explained it, but to be honest, it was tiring when it kept happening over and over again. If things continued like this, I would be exhausted. So my cousin, who sympathized with my feelings, tried to persuade me somehow, but Rebo was quite stubborn. Mom, don't come to my house so often. I'm fine. What are you talking about? You're my precious daughter, so of course I'd be worried. You're trying to send away a mother who loves her daughter so much? She would talk endlessly about her love for her precious daughter while crying, so up until now, I had no choice but to give in. I did my best to raise you after your father passed away. It must have been so hard to raise you all by myself. I'm so grateful for that. But I'm not your doll. I have my own life. I want to do what I want. I know that if I live my life the way I want, I'll end up in hell, so I'm saying this. If you do what your mother says, you'll be happy. Don't be with this poor guy. You should listen to me. The arguments between the two of us are always a parallel battle. It dragged on for a long time because neither of us would budge from our opinions. I was racking my brains over how to calm the situation when the atmosphere changed. Aim-san kept glancing at me as she continued speaking. Could it be that the people at Sen's company injured your father and that's why you feel guilty? As soon as I heard these words, Jisaki's expression changed instantly. I could only stare at her face. It was the first time I had heard such a story. I had never heard it before. As I stared at her blood-stained face in agitation, she looked down apologetically. You had someone else you liked, didn't you? I thought it was strange that you married Mr. Ta. That would be rude to Taka-san. Is that true? I nodded sadly. She said that she had been thinking about telling me about it someday and looked at me as if she was looking at me. I happened to overhear your mother talking to people at work on the phone and that's how I found out. Apparently, an employee at your mother's company injured your father a few years ago. Apparently she said she shouldn't have driven after drinking. I'm sorry. My father never said a word about it. It wasn't an injury serious enough to break a bone. When she was taken to the hospital because of that, it was because her symptoms were worse due to overwork. But no matter the circumstances, it's a fact that I caused trouble. I think back on my married life with Chisaki so far. Now that I think about it, has Chisaki ever told me she loved me? I've told her I loved her, but I don't think the other way around. So she married me out of guilt and old age, but she dated another man outside? I started to feel sad as soon as I realized that she had fallen from grace. I didn't want to show her embarrassing side, but tears just kept flowing. The truth is, I knew what was going on behind her back, but I pretended not to see it. I wanted to find out the cause of the strange anxiety I'd been feeling lately, so I investigated Chisaki, even though I felt bad about it. The results showed that she had been frequently seeing the other person my mother-in-law had mentioned. After the detective told me the truth, I cut off the detective's words when he tried to say something, and blocked out any further information, so I don't know much about the other person. I had a fire alarm in my pocket, but using it made me remember the reality of how I cried, and I didn't like it. I'm sorry. That's all I can say right now. You've come to hate me, haven't you? The shock is too great, and my mind is struggling to process. There are so many things to think about, but none of them come together properly. That's why I haven't been able to come up with many words to express my feelings. I think of Chisaki as someone important to me. She's helped me so much up until now. That's why I didn't want her to marry me for that reason. Are these the right words to say now? Are there other words I should say? I try hard to think, but my mind seems to be blank. A gloomy atmosphere fills the room. However, amidst all this, Aim-san opens her mouth with a cheerful grin. It seems like I'm just intruding. I'm sure there will be more to talk about, so I'll follow up with this. I had my own thoughts, but I wanted Kazaki to tell me what had just happened. I clenched my fists and headed to the entrance to see Aim off. I knew that seeing her face would only make me feel bad, but I decided to see her off so that I wouldn't forget these feelings I had now. I had no business talking about touching someone's wounds just because things weren't going my way. Anger welled up in me at Aim's love. I put on my shoes at the entrance. Aim looked at my face and sneered. What a pathetic face. You're crying like a child and making Blood worry. Oh, you're disqualified. You should divorce Blood right away. Ah said that and put her hand on my shoulder. She kept grinning and thinking that she knew what I was going to do and wanted revenge or payback on me, but it's no use. I'm the president of a major company. I wondered what I would do when I left the company after my husband passed away, but it seems I had talent. I was able to make the company bigger than it was back then. Aim-san put her hand on my shoulder with strength. Her nails dug into my skin, and I couldn't help but wince in pain. If you make an enemy of someone with a lot of connections like me, your company won't be able to survive. You don't want your employees to get lost on the island because of you. All I could do with those words was clench my fists. How powerless I was. I couldn't do anything to get back at the woman in front of me. A few days after seeing Isan off, we got divorced. However, we couldn't live separate lives right away, so we still lived in the same room. It was around the time when things got busy at the company, and I couldn't even take care of my personal life. To make matters worse, a letter arrived from my mother-in-law. She had kindly used the company's name, probably to avoid being read by me. The contents of the letter were summarized as follows. It said that a former poor person will remain poor no matter what, and no matter how much stagnation there is, their values will never change. And the final words were these. Get out of your daughter's high-rise apartment and become poor. The content of the letter was written in an easy-to-understand manner, and it made me very angry, but it was only natural that I had to move out. After all, I was the one paying most of the rent for this tower apartment. My wife works full-time, but she also does product introduction work using social media, and she earns a decent income. So it was decided that I would pay her living expenses, but she would pay the rent. Since I had accepted the offer, it was only natural that I would move out. A few weeks later, I finally had some free time from work, so I started moving. Packing up and moving all the belongings was hard, but since my wife helped out, things went more smoothly than I had expected. Things between my girlfriend and I had become strained since then, but we were able to talk normally when necessary, and we were able to have serious discussions about what would happen in the future. Even when she had fallen ill with a fever a few days ago, we had been cooperating with each other and living together. Why did we have to get a divorce when we were so considerate of each other? I couldn't help but worry about it all the time. Every time, I would have a bunch of questions that I wanted to ask her directly. I wondered what kind of person she liked, and whether she would make Chisaki happy. But I was afraid to ask her because I would find out that she liked him better than me. If he was someone more talented and reliable than me, she might think that he deserved to be popular and never recover. Thinking about that, I had no choice but to keep my mouth shut. In the midst of all this, Aim-san came to visit me at home just as I was moving. Finally. You're moving out of here, aren't you? Not yet. This is the first step since I have so much luggage. I still have a lot of things to move, so I plan to stay here for a while. Seeing Aim-san looking so happy made me feel my heart sting. I turned my back on her, as if I didn't want to deal with her anymore after she said such harsh words. However, Aim-san let out a gasp when she saw the luggage being carried out. I looked at the luggage, wondering if there was anything she would be surprised by. It was a large amount of treasured food, women's bags, and clothes. Aren't these Chisaki-san's things? Why are you moving my daughter's things? No, they're not. This is mine. I bought it when the company was growing. At that time, I didn't know what my boss liked, and I didn't know what women liked, so I just bought everything that caught my eye. I don't do that anymore, but when my salary started increasing, I didn't know what to spend my money on. Later, when I showed my boss that I could spend whatever I wanted, he got really angry. I read somewhere that women are happy when men spend their money this way, so I tried it that way, but it seems that was a completely off-base move. When I looked it up later, I realized that the book was written with a very biased set of values, and I was shocked. I remember how angry my boss was at the time. Do you think I married you because I wanted you to do this to me? I didn't get married to you because I wanted to live a luxurious life. I apologized for 3 nights and nights and he forgave me, but I thought it would be wrong to return everything I bought to the store, so I kept it at home. This is the first time that the staff at the store I bought things from has seen such a big increase in sales. I thought it was strange, but I felt bad for confronting her with despair when she was happy and said she would keep going. So when I explained these things, Aim-san turned pale and turned away from me. I can't believe she had that much money. No, I was just staking out the house. That's impossible. There must be some kind of empty space. Someone must have given it to me, or they must have forced me with unsold inventory. She muttered something under her breath. I couldn't hear what she was saying, but I could tell she was shocked. Eventually, she seemed to have sorted out some of her feelings. She turned to me again and said the same words she had written the other day. Get out of my daughter's Tawan and become poor. When I heard those words, I gestured behind my mother-in-law to mean that I would be in the way of the workers. The moving company would be here soon, so fortunately, her message that I should not get in the way of the workers if I wanted to leave got through to them. When she saw the workers who had gone to load the truck earlier return, Aim-san gave a low kick and left the place. The moving process continued to progress steadily. However, the work had to be temporarily suspended. That was because the day of the previously planned home party had arrived. To be honest, I wasn't in the mood for a party, but sadly, both Chisaki and I were the type of people who prioritized other people's needs. So we couldn't bring ourselves to tell our friends about the divorce, and the day arrived without us being able to tell them the truth as they were looking forward to it. Chisaki and I had no choice but to greet the acquaintances who were gathering one after another that day, saying goodbye to them. It was quite awkward, but I eventually got over it and pulled out my game console to play with my friends, and work with Chisaki to prepare a meal, and we all had fun together. I wonder what they're doing at a time like this, but it makes me feel a little relieved. Maybe it's because we're back to being a happy couple while they're in this house. There's no gloomy atmosphere in this room now. I'm very happy during this time when I can laugh with Chisaki like we used to. Looking at Chisaki's smile makes me realize once again that I really did love her. So I knew what I had to do. I should help her be happy after the divorce. I was sad that she cheated on me, but I owed her a lot, so I had to repay her. To do that, I had to make sure that Aim-san didn't interfere in my daughter's life, but I couldn't come up with a good idea on my own. I guess I should tell my friends the truth and ask for their help. As I was thinking about this, the doorbell rang, and I shook my head. Everyone I invited should be in this room. Maybe the delivery person my neighbor or someone else had ordered went to the wrong room. Thinking this, I opened the door and Aim-san was standing there. I didn't think she would still be here after all that bombshell in front of us and the harassing letters she sent me. I wonder what's going on in her head. I came to check on my daughter, but she's not feeling well. Oh, is there a visitor? She stepped into the entrance. Ah was surprised to see several pairs of shoes lying around. Did I intrude? Even my mother-in-law, who always gets in our way, must have found it difficult to be in a space full of people she doesn't know. I wonder why she doesn't share her common sense with other people, but I have no idea what's going on in her head, so it's pointless to think about it. Aim San, who heard the sword fight, quickly tried to leave the place, but her friend stopped her. Her friends gathered at the entrance to see the visitors' faces, and one by one they introduced themselves to Aim San. Are you Sen San's mother? Nice to meet you. I work for a website production company. Oh, I work in SNS management. What brings you here today? Many people asked Hayato Yagi questions, and Aim San's eyes widened, as if she didn't know what to do. Seeing this, Ryuin's spirits dropped a little, and he thought about how to get Aim San back. Ni doesn't seem to be in much trouble, so he wants to watch for a while longer, but it's going to be tough if she keeps saying unnecessary things like she did last time. So I tried to open my mouth, but Aim San spoke first. Everyone, please listen to what I have to say. I was wary of what she was going to do, but it seemed she wanted to talk about her local lover. Chisaki and I have an acquaintance named Motoharu. He's a really nice guy. He's rich, very elegant, and young and cute in his 20s. He's so cool, like he came out of a movie. The people gathered there seemed to interpret this as Aim San starting to brag about her friends, and they wanted to hear more, but I thought it would be better to stop. Aim San, who had left me alone, grinned and painted a picture around her mouth. She probably wasn't thinking about anything, so I wanted to somehow stop her from talking. However, I tried to ask Aim San if she had anything to do, but she firmly denied it, saying it was fine. You know, Motoharu-san is a really nice guy when he stands next to my tree. Look at this photo. If I were to marry someone like this, I'd want someone like this. What do you all think about your marriage partner? When I showed her the photo I had taken with my smartphone, Aim San looked at me with a triumphant expression on her face. She must be trying to mentally push me into a corner. Even without doing that, I was already thinking about divorcing my ex-wife. My friends looked at the young and lively man on the smartphone and shared their thoughts. He's certainly a handsome guy. But if we're going to be together, it has to be someone we both like. That's right. No matter how much money he has, how kind and handsome he is. It's definitely best to marry someone you love. Aim San, who had been showing the screen of her smartphone to the people present, frowned and looked relieved. What are you talking about? Just loving each other won't make you happy. For example, Mr. Taka-san may be wealthy now, but he used to be poor, right? You must be worried about marrying someone like that, right? Oh, I'm not saying anything bad about it. I just want to know your opinion. Seeing that the conversation wasn't going as expected, Aim-san asserted her opinion with a dissatisfied look on her face. But no one agreed with her opinion. You never know what will happen in life, just like other people. So you should be with someone you love. Even if you have a lot of factory workers, it would be rude to marry someone you don't love. Of course, I don't think that love alone will make things work, but money alone won't make things work either. Asan bristled at Mao and bit her lip. She seemed to have a lot of complaints, but she didn't seem to want to tell them. Now that I think about it, I had something to do today. I'll have to chase you away. It seems I've made you look bad. Aim-san quickly left. After hearing those words, her friends said goodbye and retreated back into the back of the room, but when Asan saw them leave, she took out a jar of salt from her pocket. Well then, I'll be leaving now. But Mr. Taka should think carefully about his own happiness and quickly get out of my daughter's sight. Saying that, Aim-san wrapped salt around my shoes and sprinkled it on me before leaving the door. Witnessing such an unwise act, I froze and couldn't move. As a result, my body was covered in salt. It was amusing to see Aim-san unable to argue with her friends, but I couldn't help but wonder what the price would be. Chisaki, who had stayed behind instead of following her friends, made an apologetic face and hurriedly brushed off the salt. I'm sorry. It's not my mother's fault, or rather, yours. I should have avoided it too, but I was too dazed to move. Sighing, I shook off the salt that had covered my body and headed over to my friends. A few minutes later, I joined the group of people who were having a wild time, and they were surprised. My friends' eyes widened because I still had salt in my head, but I didn't feel like I could explain it well, so I had no choice but to evade the question. Instead, I was curious about the images they were looking at on their smartphones, so I quickly changed the subject. What was it? When I asked, it seemed that they had been looking at images on Motoharu's SNS. Apparently, they had looked into it immediately because they were curious about what Asan had said. The face on the smartphone screen was certainly the same as the one in the photo Aim-san had shown me earlier. He seemed to be quite wealthy, and his social media accounts were filled with photos of luxury items and trips, including several photos of his luxurious room with fancy furniture. However, I couldn't help but feel something was off when I saw the photo. That's because the room looked very familiar. It seemed that my friends had noticed it too. Chisaki spoke to me on behalf of everyone. Takashi, this is a room somewhere in this apartment building, right? I know because I went into the room when I helped another resident move before. The interior of this apartment building we live in is slightly different for each floor and room, so there are no rooms that are exactly the same, but the basics are almost the same, so I had a hunch. Oh, someone else has been posting something strange on this guy's social media. I was surprised when I saw the post that my friend had found while I was holding a buka. That's because it contained important information about Motoharu-san's true identity. I quickly chased after Aim-san. Luckily, it seemed that Aim-san hadn't left the apartment building yet. I was able to catch her at the entrance. What on earth? Why are you in such a hurry? Did I forget something? She tilts her head in front of me. What I'm going to tell Aim-san is about Motoharu's true identity. Aim-san, Motoharu was a marriage scammer. I didn't want Chisaki to hear this story if possible, but apparently she followed me. She caught up with me from behind and spoke to Aim-san. Your mother is being deceived. Wake up. Please. When I heard those words, I felt a strong sense of unease, so I asked Chisaki. She must have been deceived as well, but she didn't seem shocked. You liked Haru-san, didn't you? I don't like her at all. It's just that you picked up the precious thing you gave me when it lost its value, so we started talking ever since. Chisaki apologized in a small voice, saying, I'm sorry. Apparently she thought I wouldn't believe her if she told me in that situation, when her secret had just been revealed. Apparently, she hadn't had the chance to tell me until now, so she had no choice but to keep quiet. I was a little relieved to hear that she wasn't cheating on me. We'll talk about that later. Listen, Mom. Apparently, Motoharu is also involved in other scams, and often gets people he meets to buy expensive items. When asked if he's been sold anything, Ah-san was asked. Perhaps because she was too surprised by the sudden content, she told me quite honestly. Oh, yeah, she showed me pots and paintings, and when I turned Aim-san's smartphone screen to show her Motoharu's SNS, her face turned pale as she read the words of the victim. She said I was wrong. Apparently he pretended to have money, but it was actually brand-name goods he had scammed from other people. There are also photos of the house, but this room is a model room. Look, if you look closely, there are no photos that show any signs of life. When Aim-san heard this, she stared at the photos, which had no personal belongings other than furniture, and then collapsed to her knees in disappointment. Since she had been to our room many times, she seemed to immediately recognize the photos posted on SNS as photos of this house. Now you know, Mom. Money doesn't necessarily make me happy. I just thought it was a good idea. But I was wrong. What a failure as a mother. Chisaki didn't say any more kind words to her mother. If you understand, then don't force your ideas on me anymore. I'll grab my own happiness. I'll live the life I've chosen and thought for myself. She probably knew that her mother was proud, and at times like this, she probably wanted her to reflect on her actions rather than try to comfort her. All she did for her mother, who continued to cry, was take out her haka value and put it in her hand. She hugged her and didn't wipe away her tears, but went back to her room. I'm sorry I used the money you gave me on my mother. You've been troubled by your mother for so long. No, it's okay. I got to see Aim-san in a lot of trouble today. And that haka value was the first present I ever gave you. I'm glad to know that you've treasured it all this time. We got divorced so we could live our own lives. It was because of Asan's actions, but we won't change our decision for each other. She was hiding something from me, and I couldn't see through her secret either. What's more, I even suspected her of cheating. Perhaps our paths will cross again someday, but for the time being, we'll have to live alone, fully understanding the sins we've committed. After that, Aim-san apparently returned home looking quite drowsy. It seems that her previous behavior has changed dramatically since then. It seems that she retired because she could no longer fulfill her duties as president. After moving to a rural area, she seems to be living a quiet life on her own, avoiding contact with others. Later, she sent us a letter of apology. I haven't replied yet because I have no intention of forgiving her, but I hope that the time will come when I can forgive her. Meanwhile, we each ended up living in separate homes. After finishing all the preparations for the move and telling our friends about the divorce, I spent my time alone, thinking about various things. However, that lonely life didn't last long. Chisaki joined my company as an employee, so we started seeing each other on workdays. We ended up dating in a different relationship than before, boss and subordinate, but those days weren't so bad. Eventually, I was surprised when my secretary, who had been so helpful to me, quit and she took over as my secretary, but I'm still having a great time. She's good at following up on people because she pays attention to the small details. Boss, you have a bird's feather on your head. Did you help a fallen chick again like when you were a child? Yes, I got it off. Oh, thank you. I didn't notice. But I'm surprised you remembered something from so long ago. Our relationship may be over, but the time I spent with you was always fun. They're all precious memories. Oh, you're holding that ballpoint pen upside down. This is how I worked every day with her help. I'm thinking of taking my parents on a trip on my next day off. I'm also planning to rebuild my parents' house, so I'll be busy, but I'm looking forward to it. There have been sad and difficult times, but I've learned that if I work together with someone, I can overcome anything, so I've decided to continue to cherish my connections with people, no matter what.